Can everyone hear me? Great. Thank you everyone for coming in early after happy hour. We really appreciate it and we're excited to be here. So we work at Doctor.com. Doctor.com's mission is to help healthcare organizations provide patients a better experience while they're searching for them. So amongst other things, we provide listings and reputation management for private practices and hospital systems. I've been at Doctor.com for about a year now. In my role, I do both customer marketing and product marketing.
So my name is Jordyn. I've been with Doctor.com for just over 2 years, and I'm actually the product manager of this duo, so I just wanted to thank you all for letting me into your sacred PMM space for the day.
So what we want to talk about today is, what we're learning is this might be very, very specific to Doctor.com, but hopefully applies to some of you as well. We are talking through the difference between product management and product marketing at Doctor.com. We're using a product development lifecycle to talk through how we share responsibilities. We'll really quickly walk through one example of us doing that in practice at Doctor, and then we'll give you our secret and hopefully how you can implement some of what we've learned at your company. So to start, something that we heard very often yesterday was that the relationship between product marketing and product management can be really difficult and really challenging. Depending on the size of your company, the space you work in, what you have to do to work together varies drastically. But at the end of the day, product marketing can't really exist without product management. If you don't have products, you don't have anything to market. So you have to be able to work really closely together and to be on the same page to deliver value to your customers.
So as Allie mentioned, she's been with Doctor.com for about a year now. Prior to coming here, we actually, as product managers, used to take on both roles of PMM and PM. So when Allie arrived, we had to learn how to kind of relinquish some of that power and figure out how to work closely with her, but also feel like we had that control that we needed in order to launch a product successfully. So one of the first steps we did was actually research what is a PMM, because that's important. And we were a little bit confused. So I was curious in the crowd if anyone else is a bit confused about the relationship between PMs and PMMs, or even just the definition of the two roles. Cool. We were too. So these are the definitions we found, and maybe you'll agree they're a little bit vague and a little bit confusing, and also has a lot of overlap. So one of the first things we had to do is figure out how do we take this overlap and actually make it smooth sailing so we could ship a product appropriately.
For people who were here yesterday, one of the first presentations talked through one of Pragmatic's frameworks that I actually think is on everyone's share, about how to go through the product development lifecycle and delineate who has responsibility where. This is basically our version of that and how we've applied that at Doctor. So we're going to talk through really at the beginning, the ideation, when you identify a customer problem or a pain point, to when you finally roll out a product or solution that addresses that, and how we share responsibility throughout that. So to start, this is probably our favorite stage. This is really the discovery and ideation phase, when you're trying to understand your customers and really understand what they're trying to solve for, and where there might be gaps in your product or solution, where there might be gaps in their understanding about what you do. And we do that together by doing a lot of customer research. So we both share that responsibility, but as a product manager and a product marketer, you really need to understand your customer. So that's not one thing that we independently own, of course. I independently take on more competitor analysis and looking at the marketplace to see where we might have gaps that other people are addressing, where there might be solutions that better address the customer pain point, and how we can adapt. And then oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. We work together, so mistakes happen. So using the customer sentiment, the product manager, myself, will often just try to identify product gaps. So a lot of my days might be spent actually diving into our existing products and using that sentiment to really figure out where we can improve and make changes.
And from there, once we've identified what that customer pain point is or where we might have a gap, we move on to brainstorming and trying to come up with concepts or ideas that might address that problem. So together, we brainstorm a lot. We like to bounce ideas back and forth. We both bring a different skill set to the table, so we find that we come to much better solutions when we work together. Sometimes at this stage, we might identify a marketing solution that could be the fix for whatever that problem is, and I might run with it independently to see if that addresses the customer pain point.
For the PM side, we actually have a few different roles we can kind of take here, or pathways, I guess I should say. So we might choose to do an A/B test. We might choose to do something coordinated with Allie with that A/B test, or perhaps move on to a full spec, considering an MVP and also possible iterations in the future. So prioritization actually kind of does fall more on the PM side in our world. So typically this happens by communicating with stakeholders to really understand the gravity of the problem and deciding how far we should push engineering to get it out sooner, or if we can kind of let it sit in the background. So a lot of my job is aligning with the person who's requested the product, the person who's most impacted by the product, and then also, of course, aligning with engineering to make sure that they fully understand how important it is to ship this quickly, or again, kind of let it fall into the backlog.
And as I'm sure everyone here knows, everyone wants everything immediately and at the same exact time. So I try to work with our client success team, our sales team, and our marketing team to actually understand the impact that this idea could have on the customer. It can be really hard to prioritize a lot of competing priorities. So we kind of split up and try to get the best analysis we can to make the best decision about what should come first.
Again, development typically falls more in my realm, but Allie's always playing a part. So this is something that I tend to own. So just this rollout timeline. So making sure engineering is keeping with the timeline that we've set, the prioritization that we've set. And I'm really acting as that partner with engineering and then communicating their timeline and their needs back to Allie. And then also engineering often has questions. So I have to make sure I'm on it, answering those questions, making sure that they're following the spec, and if there's any gaps, filling those as well.
And we work at a lean tech company, so once a product is developed, we want to roll it out as quickly as possible. Depending on what it is, it could have been in development for maybe a few weeks, but sometimes a few years. So once the code is ready and once it's ready to be deployed, everyone's really anxious to get it out there. So while it's still in development, we try to get ahead of that launch plan. We start digging through the documentation to understand what the training needs will be, what resources we'll need to roll this out to customers, so we can be ready to go as quickly as possible. And that brings us to probably the most exciting and stressful stage, when the product is actually ready and you want to roll it out to customers. If all things have gone as planned, we have a really solid launch plan that we're ready to execute on. It doesn't always necessarily work that way, but we try to go with this as quickly as possible. So this is when together we start working on training the team internally, getting our client success team and our sales team ready to talk about this, and making sure they're comfortable with what the new product or feature is. And then together we start to execute on that launch plan. For all of our new products and features, we roll it out to a beta group of client users first. So that's the plan that I execute on before moving forward to a full launch to all of our customers and out to sales and marketing.
Again, this is something I do mostly with engineering, just coordinating this rollout, making sure things are not stuck in QA and that things will be prepared at the time Allie's expecting, so she doesn't hit that red button and nothing's actually launched. So that's important.
And then after the product's actually rolled out, the life cycle doesn't stop there. We work together to analyze customer data to make sure that the product or feature that we just rolled out actually had the impact that we intended, to make sure that it filled the initial gap that we saw. So I will independently, once I've seen that customer data, work on different adoption and usage campaigns to bring more customers to the product, so we can make sure we're fully understanding whether or not it filled that gap.
As I mentioned in the beginning, something I consider during the discovery and concept development stage is future iterations. So we want to make sure that the product is ready to be iterated on, even if it's just an MVP. So at this time, I start collecting data. We use a lot of Google Analytics for our data, and we base the product iterations on that. One thing I want to mention is this is kind of a linear way that we're depicting this, but once you're in the maintenance phase, you actually kind of end up back in the discovery phase and it starts all over. So it is a cyclical cycle. Once we know what the next iteration is, it just goes back up to the top of the funnel. So as we mentioned, we wanted to just cover a quick little case study of something that we've worked on together. And this is actively communicating and effectively communicating ROI to our customers.
So at the first stage, it can be an interesting problem to identify, but we knew that customers were happy with our product and that they liked using it, but they didn't fully understand the impact it had on them. As we mentioned before, we work with private practices and healthcare systems. So in a lot of situations, we're really working with doctors on marketing their practice. Doctors are brilliant, but they don't necessarily have a background in business or marketing. So explaining to them how that process works can be really challenging. The concept of lead nurturing would probably go totally over their heads. So we really had to break it down into something that was relatable to them. We were able to do that by kind of falling back on how we often describe what we do. When you think about how you find a healthcare provider, you go through different steps. So at stage one, maybe you decided you needed to see a doctor for whatever reason, you're sick, you have an injury. Today, a lot of people go straight to Google and just start searching for doctors near them. That's something that we're all familiar with. Doctors are patients too, they're familiar with that. So we really broke down each step of that patient journey and mapped out how our products and services fit into that. And then from there, we were able to tie in the metrics that we had been reporting on to different steps of that journey.
So we had actually been doing something similar to this, a monthly report that we'd send out to our clients at the beginning of each month. And we realized that maybe it was no longer performing as intended if clients were still a little bit confused. So we kind of needed to iterate on this, and it had to be fast. So something I really needed to work hard on and articulate to all the different teams is the prioritization pretty much had to be first. So we needed to figure out how to make the product be more effective, but get it out before the next month happened so that we could, fix this issue and not have it continue to go. So just making sure that we were effectively articulating that ROI for the following month. Again, we needed that quick turnaround time, so it was this kind of delicate balance between something that the engineering team could get out quickly and ship fast, and then something that we decided to do was figure out quick marketing wins. So we were able to place that in the monthly report and get it out on time.
And when it came to launching this new monthly report, in a lot of ways that was mostly launching this new framework about talking through what we do. While we had maybe talked about it in one-off conversations, we hadn't formally mapped out our products and services to this patient journey before. So while we were preparing to roll out that monthly report, we were starting to work this narrative into more touch points throughout the customer lifecycle. So when they received that monthly report, it was something that was familiar, relatable, and actually understandable. Otherwise, it would have defeated the whole point of doing it.
So again, this goes back to that last phase. We rolled it out, things went well, and Allie and I had already decided that we're going to work on future iterations. So we are using metrics again, open rates, we are using CTA click rates, things like that to decide on what we would change moving forward in the future. So we promised that we'd help you guys become a dynamic duo with your product managers before the end of this session. So something that we really found was important to us was aligning around a common goal. So as you saw, there's a lot of overlap amongst our roles, and the common theme that brought us together the entire time was just considering that we were both working towards the same thing, and just that kept us on the same team. And for us, that was really bringing value to our customers.
So again, something that I think we've both learned more so than anything else in the past day is that everyone's product marketing function is different. The way that you work with product is different. How large your company is different. But we're hoping these 3 takeaways can apply to you regardless of that. The first one is really finding what your common goal is. As Jordyn said, for us, that's creating products that bring value to our customers and then making sure they understand that value. And that's how we're able to work together on those projects. The second one that really goes back to the first 2 stages of the product development lifecycle that we were talking about is having a recurring meeting between our product managers and our product marketing managers, which as of today is just me, so it's pretty easy to set that up. But we use that time to brainstorm, to bounce off different ideas that have come up over the past week. We'll talk about new customer problems that we've maybe heard from people on the client success team or on the sales team, and we just use that time to talk about any ideas that we have. A lot of times we'll end at maybe just a clear marketing solution. Sometimes it's a quick product fix, but more often it's a combination of the 2. So it just gives us time to be on the same page. And then related to that, we track our projects and products and upcoming launches in the same space. We personally use Asana, but it doesn't really matter what system you use. We basically just have shared visibility across what we're doing. So Jordyn can go in any day and see what campaigns I'm working on, and that might spark an idea for a product fix. I can go in and see stuff that they're working on for a product, and maybe that sparks an idea for a marketing fix. So we just talk through that together in our meetings, but we always have shared visibility across what we're doing.
So we'd love to take your questions. I'm sure you have some. I also just wanted to say I noticed people were taking pictures of our slides. I'm okay with sending them out, or if Allie is too, partnership. So if you want to come find us afterwards and ask us more questions, we're happy to answer them. And then also we can send these slides out as well.
I have two questions. So one, I just wanted to know, is product marketing and product management both roll up under product in your organization, or do you guys roll up into two separate departments?
No, we've actually learned that we do it differently than I think anyone else. I actually roll up into client success.
Okay, and then my second question was, you said that you guys both use Asana. And that's a tool that we use at my company. We're a B2B software company. But we find that the product team really needs like either product board or other tools. So are you guys using other separate tools, or are you tracking all your sprints and everything from a product perspective in Asana as well?
We're actually using product board.
Okay.
Mostly. So Allie has shared visibility into our product board. And
But
that's
then
how
you put your tasks in Asana?
we task Allie through Asana, yes. So we have a Zapier connection, Zapier, whatever you guys want to call it, and it will create tasks when we're needing to pull her into a project.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, thanks so much for your presentation. I have a question going back to the first slide of the case study, which was identifying that problem. How did you identify the problem? You mentioned the problem was like a lack of clarity. Yeah, what were you seeing in the metrics, or what were you hearing from customers that helped you really identify the lack of clarity?
Yeah, we send a lot of surveys to our customers, so it makes it pretty easy to identify those, but doctors are very direct in their feedback. They will just straight up say, I don't know what you're doing for my practice, or what value I should be seeing. So they share that feedback really directly. So we're lucky in that, and that they tell us exactly what their problems are sometimes.
And so you weren't seeing doctors leave, like it wasn't affecting churn or anything, it just was like an opportunity to make it even clearer?
Yeah, I think there was a correlation. It's hard to say. I mean, a lot of different things go into churn, so we can make the assumption that it influenced that, and it has gone down, so I think that that was part of it, but that alone wouldn't have indicated that this was the problem.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
I actually have a follow-up to that, so that's a nice segue, thank you. I loved this case study. I think talking about being able to prove the ROI is so important to drive that usage and that retention. Can you talk a little bit more about what went into that monthly report, and what was it that you changed to help prove the value of your solution?
We did a little bit more metrics driven, where previously it was a little bit more factual. I don't know how to, it's hard to show you without a visual, but basically we really dove into metrics, and then also added some facts that we had done from a study Allie had conducted actually. So tying their metrics into why it's important, and really showcasing that on the forefront of the monthly report.
Yeah, and to add on to that, the data itself wasn't radically different. A lot of it was just how we were presenting it. So we were talking a little bit about this patient journey framework. We were basically going through each step of that patient journey, using data from a study we had run to prove why each of those steps mattered, and then tying in the metrics that we had that were associated with that. So it wasn't even a radically huge change in the data that we were presenting, but just how we were presenting it to them.
I had a quick question about the launch phase of the life cycle. So you mentioned rolling out to a set of beta users before expanding. How long do you stay in that beta phase, and how do you know when you're ready to expand?
Yeah, that depends a lot on what the product or feature is. If it's a smaller fix, we might only stay in beta for 2 weeks or something like that. If it's a really big change, we'll really have to wait as long as we can to gather data. So sometimes that might be a few months. But we kind of play it by ear. We don't actually set the full launch date until we're probably halfway through beta. We really want to use that time to get feedback from those customers. We actually give them a link to our product board so they can submit feedback about that new feature. So we want to make sure that we're sourcing that and not just rushing to a full launch.
Oftentimes we take that feedback from product board as well and start iterating on the product while it's still in beta, so that it's a little bit more solidified before the full launch.
Hi, I think this is product marketing and product management is a synergy. I think this is a great presentation. So I have two questions about customers. First of all, who owns the customer relationship? Is it product marketing or product management? And how do you go about soliciting feedback from your external customers? And the second part of the question is, how do you, your internal customers, like sales, customer success, how do you find the best way to communicate with them, and how often are you guys in touch with all those teams?
Do you want to take the first question?
Sure, I can take the first one. So as I mentioned, I do customer marketing and product marketing, so I report into our client success team. So it's really easy for me to be that person to really understand our customers and work with people on the front line who are actually speaking with our customers to get that feedback. We definitely both share that responsibility, but just by the nature of where my role is, it's a lot easier for me to handle it.
Is your organization the only one where product marketing rolls up into success? Does anybody else roll up into success? Okay.
I don't know, but I honestly recommend it. It's really easy to get to know your customers
Yeah, that's
really well
awesome.
when you're on the customer
Yeah.
success team.
I'd say in terms of our internal clients, so oftentimes I'm working closely with CS or sales. We believe in a lot of transparency at our company. I'm actually consistently sitting in on meetings weekly with these teams, gathering feedback. I sit on the floor with them every few days just to kind of hear what clients are saying, shadowing calls, talking to them directly. And also, as we mentioned, we have a product board, dashboard where they can submit their feedback as well. So anytime I receive feedback from someone that's internal, I actually go right up to them and I ask them, like, why do you need this? What do you need this for? What are you trying to solve? And I really dig into the core of the issue. Oftentimes I end up talking to Allie after I have that and just running these ideas past her just to gather that client side as well.
What are the primary ways you get customer research prior to beta? Is it surveys? Is it outbound or inbound phone calls? Is it trade shows? What are the primary ways that you get customer input prior to beta?
Kind of a combination of everything, but we do send a lot of surveys, and we're lucky that we have a pretty high response rate, so we're able to gather a lot through that. As we've mentioned, I report into the client success team, and I sit with the people on the team who are frontline. So our team is really great about sourcing customer feedback. So if something comes up on a phone call, if it comes up during a sales conversation, they can just turn around and tell one of us. But as Jordyn mentioned, we also use product board. So people on our team can submit customer feedback as it comes in. And through that, it makes it a lot easier to see the trends across what's coming up in those different conversations and to prioritize based on that.
I also want to add that Allie has marketed product board to these beta clients, so they have access to that as well. So oftentimes when we release something in beta, we get feedback through theirs.
I had a quick question. I thought it was interesting that that product marketing owns the beta program, and I was just kind of curious. In my company is product, and so I was just kind of wanted to survey the room and see, does anyone else who owns it? Does product marketing own it? Does product management own it? The beta product.
Yeah, I mean, another thing we're stressing is we do all of this together, so
Oh, yeah.
it's not like
I
I'm
was
just doing a beta in a silo, but yeah.
I mean, I like that. I think especially I think it makes sense, particularly for your situation, because you are in client success, and so you're closer to that, and so I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, we also use it as a beta both to test the product itself, but also to test that launch plan to see how that works so we can adjust for the full launch. So we really use it as a product and a marketing beta.
Okay, 2 more questions. What is your workflow for having success submit product feedback to product board? Because currently we have an integration through Salesforce, but we find oftentimes they don't actually submit that feedback through Salesforce.
Is it mainly internal clients?
Well, it's a mixture, but mainly internal feedback that they hear on calls and everything.
Yeah. So this has actually been an ongoing, I don't know if battle is the right word, but that's sometimes how it feels. So we've integrated product board about 6 months ago. And as I mentioned, I actually attend a lot of the meetings between CS and sales. So almost every single meeting I mention, we can't help you if you don't help us, so please submit. And I actually think in the last week, we've been seeing a big uptick in that, so I'm really happy, but I think it's just a behavioral change. Also, I noticed that when they started seeing the ideas that were trickling in actually come to fruition, there was more interest in submitting ideas. So once they saw that this was a proven method of getting our attention, it was almost like, they're more excited.
Yeah, we also, it's a little bit harsh, but we frame it in that if they don't put something in product board, they can't expect for it to ever happen. If they're running into a problem or an issue and they don't put it there, then they just have to live with it. There's no way the product team would know about it. So it's that shared responsibility where if they don't do it, they can't be upset with the product team for not addressing it.
They've actually learned that the hard way, so.
Is there workflow within product board itself, or where do they?
Yep.
It's in product board.
What's your approach to internal training? Do you guys kind of tag team? Is it marketing led with like product input on the more technical questions? Like how do you guys approach that?
Again, I think it depends on what the product or feature is. We work together on what the training will be, and then depending really on how many technical questions we anticipate, one of us will lead it, but we're usually in that meeting together.
We'll be here all day, so happy to take more questions.
Amazing. Thank you, Allie and Jordyn.